Al and Cindy Antle are joining me today on Intersections, and I've known them for quite a while. Cindy is retired now from a career in nursing, and Al is busily engaged in his daily work as a credit service person. And you probably will recognize Al if you don't recognize his name. So welcome to Intersections, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Great. I want to have a conversation with you today about three stages of life pretty well. You go back to your early years, if you would. Cindy, I know you were raised in the Salvation Army, and I know you come from a different faith community at your origin, Al. I'd like you both to consider and share with us separately what those years were like for you, how you engaged in the church, and what that meant to you.
Okay. Well, I grew up at the temple, and actually as a young child I was very active in the choir. I was in the singing company. I was in the youth group, and they also had a group there, Triple Trio. I was, chosen to be in that. So that was very interesting for me. And I do think that in those early years, the formative years, I think being active and being fed the Bible on a regular basis, I think that was very important for me to draw on in my later years.
Absolutely. Al, so talk a little bit about your experience as a young lad.
Well, I come from a Roman Catholic background, and I grew up on the Southern Shore. And of course, interspersed with the church is also a very thick and rich Irish culture. So I was far more attuned with the sound of an accordion catching its breath rather than a band tuning up. So this whole business of coming to Salvation Army was a real, holy crow, what's that kind of experience. But, a very traditional upbringing. We got out of bed every morning and went to Mass before we went to school. Now, I must confess I wasn't as faithful to that as I should have been. I was far more faithful to that in the winter, because if you went to Mass, you could probably get a ride to school. And if you, didn't, well, you had to walk to school, and school was a mile away.
Always practical.
Always practical, try to be practical. But, now the tradition was not like the Army at all, in that there was no youth group and so on and so forth. The church required the faith required, I should say, that you follow a regime. You got up in the morning, you went to Mass. You prayed at lunch in school. You prayed before supper. You had rosary in the evening. That sort of thing. Now, that wasn't happening as I got older, but when I was very young, every single evening there was rosary.
There's a certain amount of appeal for a lot of people in the liturgy.
Oh yes,
right.
Oh, yes.
And it has a great deal of meaning to people, mm-hmm. And it's just another expression of the Christian faith, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And my mother was an absolute, probably the most committed Catholic I've ever met in my life in terms of her practice and her belief system. Yeah. And she had a bit of a rough time when it came to acknowledging the validity of other faiths, but she certainly held on to her own to her dying day.
Yeah, good. You've both had careers. You're still working away at yours. But one of the things, and when I was thinking about it, Cindy, you spent many years as a palliative care nurse. Al, you work with people who are going through financial crisis. So crisis is the common theme here. And you get to see people at a vulnerable point in their lives. Can you reflect a little bit about your own faith experience in your work as you interacted with these other folks? How did that sort of stand you in good stead?
Sometimes it was very complicated. I do think, and I do know, I shouldn't say I think, I know, that when I knew people were faithful to their faith, it was easy, very easy to connect with them, to be able to give them that assurance that once their loved one passed from this earth, that there was indeed another life waiting. And I think being able to draw on my own religious beliefs and my faith, I think it was a wonderful way to be able to connect with them, because then I knew we all believed the same thing. It was, and I just needed to say this too. One thing I noticed as people were trying to exit this world is that if they did have a faith base, sometimes they're passing, I can't say a bit easier, but I will say a bit easier, because they themselves knew that where they were going, even though they would have to leave their loved ones behind, where they were going, things were so much better for them. And so I think the faith, being able to draw on that, was indeed very comforting for everybody.
Great. Totally different context, Al. How about your comments on?
Well, you know, it's interesting that we're having this conversation today, because the organization that I work with, I've been with since university, 40 plus years. And I've provided financial counseling to 43,750 plus families. Every one of them have been in crisis, every last one of them. People don't come to see me because it's a good day. They come to see me because it's a wretched time. And I genuinely believe, outside the fact that we were founded by the five religious denominations, I genuinely believe that we are put in a place for a reason. Yes. And I think I've done well in the work I do. Now, I don't mean that in an arrogant way. But the one thing that I'm probably proudest of is that at 40 plus years and 43,000 cases, there's never been a client complaint. Never. So we must be doing something right. I genuinely believe that I can't get through the day unless I ask for help to get through that day, because you don't know what's coming. And I also believe that I can't get through the day with what's coming unless I'm absolutely confident of that help, because it just comes. It just comes.
And the help we're talking about is some divine intervention.
Exactly.
You know, I've known you both for a long time, and you know, you were just walking along the road of life, doing your thing very happily with your family and your work, and then out of nowhere comes a couple of real haymakers, eh?
Mm-hmm. Calm haymaker,
and you've both encountered them in different ways. And in your case, Cindy, you know, you, I think, went into early retirement, if I'm not mistaken, because a medical condition came on which has left you legally blind.
Yes, that's correct.
And Al, in your case, you went through a very traumatic, life-threatening illness just a year or so ago, which, you know, these are huge impactors and upsetters to the status quo, right? You must have had interesting conversations with God, conversations in your mind, conversations with each other about how do we handle this now? I mean, your incident came first, and then latterly it was Al's incident. Talk a little bit about the role of faith helping you through some of that.
Well, I'm sure that I would never have gotten where I am without it. I do remember, and like I was really sick and I was in bed, and all I could think was, this is like quite a storm. So just give me the strength to get through the storm. That's all I needed. And interestingly enough, it was provided. And you know, after that, one of my really good friends, who's subsequently deceased, gave me this little tiny, it was like a piece of wood, and written on it, it was, faith is not knowing what tomorrow holds, but knowing who holds tomorrow. And I thought, yeah, that's me. But I tell you, I was really touched that she could see that through me, that she knew that I understood that that's exactly what it was all about.
Yeah, and just before we come to Elle, you know, you've come through that with all its adjustments, and still adjusting probably.
Every day.
Every day. You know, things that you might have enjoyed doing, like reading, well, you have to learn to do it differently now.
Yes.
You know, going out just not thinking, being rather carefree, going for a walk. It's a little different now. But through all of that, you know, it's interesting, new doors have opened. And you've become a bit of an advocate along the way for folks with sight disabilities.
Yes, I
Can
have.
you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. As I was approaching retirement, I used to say to Al lots of times, I don't know what I'm going to do in my retirement, didn't I?
Yeah.
And he'd say, something will come up.
Yeah.
Well, it did. So once the shock and the dismay of it all kind of settled, I did get in touch with CNIB, as doctors recommended. And I guess they saw something in me that they figured they could use, which I'm very grateful for, because it became kind of my retirement project. And so, yes, I'm on the foundation board at the CNIB, and through that I've become advocate. I went through an advocacy program there to teach you, of course, not to be aggressive. Be assertive, but not aggressive. And that was a lesson that I really needed, because I do tend to be aggressive. So, but yes, and I'm really enjoying being able to do that, because what I've learned, you know, learned experience, of course, I think, or life experience is probably one of the best teachers. Unfortunately, I had to learn it this way.
Yeah.
But I do want to try to make life a little bit easier, obviously for myself, but for others as well, if I can possibly do that.
There's an old saying, when life hands you a lemon, make lemonade, right?
Well, I got to stand out in my lawn.
Very good, great. So Al, let's come back to you. You, you know, a couple of years ago, it was nip and tuck there for a while.
It was interesting. I became quite ill in a matter of 2 hours. And so I didn't quite have a chance to prepare for, okay, God, come on, you know, I'm ready. It just happened. You know, I have no recollection after about 5:30 in the afternoon, and I woke up 6 days later. And I remember when I woke up thinking to myself, he's got a second chances, because here I am. And I remember saying that to Major Darrell, and I remember saying it to Aaron Bodgel. Now, I'm a different animal, okay? You're never going to see me at the mercy seat. I'm not built like that, okay? But I know what I believe, and I know how urgent it is that we all believe. I would like to be different about being overt, but I'm not built that way. It's not going to happen. But you know, when it comes to faith, that is still that 6-year-old who was asked at 6 years old to believe this, and who chose to. That's unchanged.
It's interesting that life that is faith is a choice.
Oh
right?
yeah,
Faith
oh, yeah.
is a choice, and it's expressed differently by all of us, and our Creator made us different, and so I think accounts for the fact that we will express our faith differently. Mm-hmm. You know, there are certain basics and common held things, but the how of how we do it is different for all of us, and you know, whatever we're comfortable with. But you know, your comment. You woke up 6 days later and blinked a few times.
Beyond the paranoia at the time, it was, holy crow, what happened? Like, the last thing I remember was 5:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, like we had to tell you what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Concept.
So then you 6 days later, you come to, and you realize there's another part to this journey.
Yeah.
Right? And that I suspect confirmed things of faith for you even if they were at any point doubted. There was a reason.
Because as I started to wake up, and I woke up before they planned,
Yeah.
so I managed to figure out that I was somewhere significant. This wasn't my living room.
Yeah.
And I really thought I died. I really thought I had died. But when I woke up, I discovered, no, I haven't. And now what do you want? You know, I became extremely paranoid and was like that for about 24 hours.
Yeah.
But we now know that was the medication, and
Right.
you know, that's all part of it.
Right.
But the first thought I had was, I'm getting a second chance.
Yep.
I'm getting a second chance.
And you know, not everybody gets a second
No,
chance.
no.
You know, and you know, I mean, we're here happy as luck today.
Well, the other thing that whole episode did for me is I'm not afraid anymore
Of?
of dying. Now, I was never afraid. Don't misunderstand the comment. But now I'm absolutely not afraid. You know, the only thing I'd say is...
Articulate that a little bit more if you can, because
I had that second chance. I had that second chance. You know, I mean, up on the Southern Shore when we were growing up, there was an old guy up there who used to say, I don't mind dying. It's just you're dead for so long, you know? So beyond that, it was a different, it rolled out a different viewpoint for me inside my own soul.
good.
And that was always there, but it's now, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Good. Let me just switch for a second. I mean, I referenced right at the beginning that you're a family, you have adult children now, and you've gone through all the phases of parenthood and all of that stuff. You've gone from the wringing your hands stage, you know, will it ever turn out this way or that way or the other thing, to, you know, moments of immense pride and all of that kind of stuff. Do you see faith going around and inside of that whole parenting experience? Do you see anything there?
I think there had to be. Well, number one was the practice. I mean, we raised our children in the church, which meant that our vehicles knew how to get from paradise to the citadel or the temple, whichever the case
With or
was.
without a driver.
With or without a driver. You know, and they grew into faith themselves. But more importantly, from where I'm sitting, they grew into an ethical lifestyle. They are absolutely clear on right and wrong, and they're absolutely clear on what respect looks like, sounds like, tastes like, smells like. And you know, you'll find them defend the downtrodden, or defend the unpopular, or defend whatever the case might be. With they're quite confident. They're quite confident in their own shoes, and I think their upbringing in the church has had a major part in that piece of their personality.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that sums it up.
Got it pretty well covered, eh?
I think so.
Well, listen, thank you so much for talking to us today and sharing your experience with those who are going to watch. I do believe that part of the benefit of a program like this is to be an encouragement to others that may be struggling with faith, may have had some kind of circumstance come their way that was unforeseen. And you've really given us some bedrock stuff today about, you know, life's going along and then boom, something happens.
Yeah, nobody controls it.
Nobody except
Up
him. Except him.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, very much for your willingness and your candor in speaking about matters of faith.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.